Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 8 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're going to learn artificial intelligence or you're going to die trying. What I'm going to need you to do is pour yourself a nice, enormous glass of iced coffee. That would be straight up black coffee poured over ice. No sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. Now it would take quite a bit of effort for you guys to reproduce this most excellent glass of iced coffee that I have, because I secured the beans from the very tip top of the most famous Mount Elgon in Africa. I sourced the raw, unroasted beans from the farmer who grew them. I brought them home. I have a roaster and I roasted them to perfection. I ground them and then I made myself this coffee. Now, if you're not able to make it to Mount Elgon and roast your own coffee, you could try some Nescafe, okay? But the key thing is no sugar and no sweeteners. Now, while you're getting your coffee out, as always, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. It is your support and your encouragement that keeps this great content coming. You guys that are not helping out yet, think about looking in the description down below. There is a link over to my Patreon account. You can hop on over there and hook a brother up. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and let's talk about what we are going to do in this most excellent episode number 8. I'm going to teach you how to begin to manipulate the frames that you are grabbing from your webcam, and we are going to learn how to put text on those frames. We're going to learn how to put squares on those frames, and we're going to learn how to put circles on those frames. Because as we're doing artificial intelligence, a lot of times we need to kind of decorate the frame or put additional information on the frame, and so we've got to kind of get some of these basic fundamental skills out of the way before we move forward. Okay, I apologize. I am a little bit stuffy today. No fear, it is just the good old-fashioned head cold. I don't have that most dreaded virus that everyone seems to be fighting these days. I have the good old-fashioned head cold, and it has left me a little bit stuffy, but I'm going to power on through this lesson because I think it is that important. Okay, what I will need you to do is go ahead and I will need you to fire up your most excellent Visual Studio Code. And once you're there, what we're going to do is we are going to go to our Python folder where we have been working. And then I'm going to have you create a new Python file. We click on the little page with a plus. And I believe this is, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't think I am, is going to be OpenCV. Program 8, so -8.py, and the .py is kind of important, and man, I just put that in the wrong folder. It really kind of annoys me how this works, but you've got to kind of click in a blank spot to make sure that it doesn't put it in one of these folders. Excuse me. So we've got to click in a blank spot down here, come back up to Python. And darn it, click in a blank spot. I fight with this all the time. So now I click plus, and now I'm where I need to be, OpenCV-8, or I think we might actually be -7, yeah. -7.py. Did any of the rest of you guys struggle to get OpenCV to create the program where you want it to? But here indeed we do have it, .py. We click enter and boom, a fresh new Python program just waiting to be written. Okay, now we're going to start with our basic program where you go out and grab a frame and show a frame, grab a frame and show a frame. You probably already have that from one of the earlier lessons, but in case you don't, you can come over to the most excellent www.toptechboy.com, and you can search on, you have this happy little search bar right here, and you can search on the lesson that is called faster launch of webcam and smoother video, something like that. And I had better get my big noggin out of your way. Okay, there you go. Faster launch of webcam and smoother video in OpenCV, on Windows. And you'll get this kind of starter program that goes out and kind of configures your webcam and starts grabbing and showing frames. If you click on these two happy little pages, it will highlight the text, right mouse click and copy. And then we come over here, click in your window, right mouse click and paste, and boom. Now, just to make sure that we didn't mess things up in the first 3 minutes, we are going to go ahead and run this thing to make sure that we haven't broken anything. And what we should just see is we should see a video window pop up from our webcam. So we're going to come here and do that. And we are going to hope, yes, there it is. Okay, and that looks good. That looks good. And so I'm going to quit out of that. And that was a little bit big. No one wants to see my head that big. So I'm going to turn the size down to 640. And then I'm going to turn the width down to 360. Okay, 640 by 360, that should be a more reasonable size. And then also just a reminder, if this doesn't work for you, you've got to put your webcam number. Your webcam number here might be 0. I've got several cameras going, and so my camera number is 1. If 1 doesn't work for you, try 0, but it should be like 0, 1, or 2, and just try it until you get something that works. That is perhaps the best iced coffee I have ever had. Okay, so we have that, and we're just going to make sure that we didn't mess up the size. It should be 640 by 360 now. Okay, boom, look at that, and that looks really nice. We're going to come in and we are going to quit out of that. Okay, so now what did I promise we're going to do? We're going to learn how to make rectangles. We're going to learn to make circles, and we're going to learn to put text over that image, over that video. And the first thing from our lesson number 7, our most excellent number 7, you could already figure out how to do a rectangle. You could just come in and you could do the rectangle using NumPy. And we would probably, do I even need to? No, I don't even think I would need to import NumPy. I could just do it just with a, just by using slices on that array. Remember, frame, that image that we grab, is just a matrix. It's a 2-dimensional matrix of a certain number of rows and a certain number of columns, and the intersection of a row and a column is a pixel. And again, it's row by column. And so we can slice that thing up. So we take frame the array, and let's just say I want something roughly in the middle. I want a rectangle roughly in the middle of that frame. Well, that would be, again, remember that this slice command wants rows first and then columns. And since the number of rows that we have is the height, that would be like 360. Well, if I wanted it in the middle, it would be 360 divided by 2 would be 180. And then I want to kind of go above that and below that by, let's say, 40 pixels. So I could say, let's go from row 140 to row 220. And that would be sort of 40 on each side of the middle, if that makes sense. Now that is the range of rows that we're going to manipulate. Now the range of columns, I'm going to put comma. And same type of thing, that if I have 360 and I want the rectangle roughly in the middle, what is half? No, we're now on 640 because it was rows, columns. We have 640 columns. And so 640 divided by 2 is 320. And so if we kind of went if we went on 320, let's say 40 less than that would be something like 280. And then 40 more than that would be 360. So this is saying that I am going to monkey with the frame, and I'm going to go on rows between row 140 and 220, and I am going to monkey with columns 280 to 360. That should be a square of about 80 pixels by 80 pixels, right square dab in the middle of the frame. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that a new color. So what I'm going to put in there is a new pixel. I'm going to manipulate those pixels. All those pixels are going to become 0, 0, 0. If you have 0 blue, 0 green, 0 red, you have, my friend, black. So this should be a black box. in the middle. So let's come in and let's see if we can run that thing. Boom! Look at that black box. You see, I can hide behind the black box, okay? So that's pretty cool. What if we wanted to make it red? Well, we remember that this color scheme, the pixels are in the format blue, green, red. So we could turn red on here. And these are 8-bit numbers, which means they go from 0 to 255. So if we wanted it full on red, we could make it 0, 0, 255. And who's your huckleberry? Look at that. Red square. Okay, and you could imagine, what if we wanted to make it more rectangular? We want it wider. Well, remember, the first range is rows, the second range is columns. So let's make it like 30 wider on each side. So we would take this down to 250, and we would take this up to 390, and I have decided that I want it blue instead. So 255, 0, 0, 0. And of course, you can mix and match the numbers as well. So we're going to come in and hit play. What did we do? We broke it. I see. Did you guys see me make that mistake? We'll blame it on the head cold. So I really messed that up. So let's see, we were at 640. That would be 320. Plus 70, I think this would be 250 if we're just going to guess. So let's see if that'll work. I gave it a crazy number in there. Boom. Okay. Blue like we wanted, and we have a rectangle that we can hide behind. Okay, so we're going to quit out of that. Now, you see, you can manipulate, you can put shapes on there by directly manipulating the frame array and by doing slices. But actually, it's kind of lucky. It's kind of lucky that OpenCV actually has some utilities that make it much easier than manipulating the raw data. So let me show you an easier way to do rectangles. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say CV2, and I want to do what? I want to add a rectangle. And where do I want to add the rectangle? I think you guys can read that all right, can't you? Okay, I think you can read that all right. I want to add the rectangle to frame. Okay, and then the first thing I have to do is I have to tell it where it is. I have to give it an X and a Y value for the for the position of the rectangle, the center of the rectangle, and it wants it as a tuple. So we've got to put it inside of parentheses. And the X, let's say we want it in the middle. Well, that would be the width. 640 divided by 2 would be 320. And then on the height, where do we want it? We want it in the middle, which would be 360 divided by 2, which would be 180. If I am thinking about this right. Am I thinking about this right? I think I am thinking about this right. Okay, I think I am thinking about that right. So that is going to be, no, I actually am not thinking about that right at all. I was thinking about it the other way. What it wants is, it wants a point of like the first point of like the upper left, and then the second point of the lower right. Okay, the upper left and the lower right. So what would the upper left be? Well, let's just make it like this. This one was the row and this one was the column. So the upper left would be the 250. So that would be the 250 for the X value, okay? And then for the Y value, the upper left would be, the Y value would be 140. So it would be like 250, 140, like that, okay? And now the point 2 is the lower right, okay? The upper left of the rectangle and the lower right of the rectangle. And the lower right would be, okay, we start with the X value, and the bigger number, the further to the right, would be the 390, okay, the 390. And then the lower number, the Y value, would be the larger one, which would be 220, like that. Okay, guys, I feel like I should explain this again. that if you remember, when we're manipulating a frame itself, it goes row first and then column. Okay, row first, the up and down first, and then the left and right second. But in this OpenCV, when it wants a point, it wants the X value first, and then the X value first, and then the Y value, and then the lower right, the X value first, and then the Y value. And so it's kind of like backwards of when you're manipulating the frame itself. And so that is probably one of the most confusing things about OpenCV. NumPy, in dealing with the array itself, it's row first and then column. But when you're giving an OpenCV command like this and it wants a point, the X value is first and then the Y value. If this doesn't make sense, stop, rewind, watch it again, play with these numbers yourself until it actually makes sense. Okay. So now we have, what do we want to put the rectangle on? We want to put it on the frame. What is the upper left? Well, it is the point 250 over, 140 down. And then the next corner is 390 over and 220 down. And so those are the 2 points. Now we got to give it a little more information. We got to give it the color. And so the color is pretty easy. Let's see, let's make it green. So I'm going to say 0 for blue. Green is going to be 255 and 0. Of course, you can mix these things if you want. And then what you got to give it is a thickness, and the thickness kind of starts at 1, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can play with these, but let's make our thickness 2. And now let's just run this and see what happens, okay? I hope it doesn't crash on me. Boom. All right. Do you see I have a little box? I can put myself in the box. Okay. So what if we want to quit out of this? I'll show you something else. We could, let's say, what if we made the line width 5 here? And then come back, you'll see we'll get a much heavier line. Boom, a much heavier line. Play around with colors and play around with position and play around with thickness, okay? And you can see that you got a lot of control. I'll show you a little pro tip here. If you want a solid box, make your line thickness -1. And if you make your line thickness -1, you get a great big fat solid box like that, okay? Let's go back and let's just turn on that one that we did with a frame the old-fashioned way, okay? And we're going to draw 2, okay, but they're on top of each other. Let me make this like a 4, line thickness of 4. And now they're different colors. And so this time, this is blue-green. I should see the blue solid behind the green frame. This would be a blue solid behind a green frame if I'm thinking about it right. And it is a blue solid behind a green frame. So you see, you can play around with both of these things, all right? So we can make a solid colors by just directly manipulating the pixels in the matrix, in the actual data matrix frame. We can manipulate those pixels like this, or we can use our friendly helper tool, the CV2 .rectangle function call. And you can imagine there is also a CV2.circle call. And what that circle wants is, where are you going to put it? You're going to put it on frame because that is your image. And then what it wants is it wants to know where is the center of your circle. Well, again, I think it probably wants a tuple there, so we need to give it an X and a Y value. And again, it's XY this time. It's not row column, it's XY. The sideways number is first. And so if we want to put it in the middle, if it's 640 wide, that would be what, 320? Okay, that would be 320. And then if we wanted to put it in the middle, it would be 180, okay, like that. And so that is a nice tuple. It's an open parentheses, an X comma Y value, and then a close parenthesis. Then we got to tell it a few more things. We got to give it a radius. And so let's say we give it a radius of 25 pixels. That ought to be pretty good. A radius of 25 pixels. And now we got to give it a color. Well, let's just make it black. So black is 0 for blue, 0 for green, and 0 for red, and that should be a black circle. And if we want it solid, let's make it a -1. Okay, and that will be a solid circle. And let's take a look and see what happens. Boom. Okay, you see I got and I kept that other stuff that I already had. Okay, and what I could also do is I could make this like a 2 instead, right? I could make my line thickness a 2, and this time it should be an open circle, but you should probably see that blue box back behind it. And there you go. You see the black circle, you see the blue showing through it, and then you've got that green frame. Okay, let's think of something else here that we could play around with that circle a little bit. Okay, I want to show you another thing that's going to happen to you. Like, remember how I was having to do this in my head? Well, wouldn't it have been easier just to say the width divided by 2, and then the height divided by 2, and that way if I change width and height, it's always going to stay in the middle, right? I mean, that's what I've been trying to get you guys to do, to think like engineers and to start using more parameters. And so let's make that a parameter, and then let's make more parameters. So let's call it my radius. Guys, be careful about using the word radius, because a lot of times radius is a reserved word. It actually is like a function call or has a specific meaning. So don't use just radius equal, because you might goof something up. But let's say my radius is equal to 30. And then let's say my color is equal to, my color is going to be equal to, let's just make it black still, 0, 0, 0. Okay, and then my thickness is going to be equal to 2. Okay, now we can come down here and we can start doing things with parameters. So we want the position in width divided by 2, height divided by 2, and then we want this to be my radius, and then we want this to be my color, and then we want this to be my thickness. Do you see how much better this is? If you come back later and look at your code and you've got this thing in there called my thickness, what's it going to be? It's going to be like my thickness. All right. If you just come in there and it's a 2, you're going to forget what that means. You're going to be completely confused on that. And so again, use parameters. And do you see how it kind of put the squiggly under my color, and it's notifying me that it doesn't recognize, and that is much better because I had not put my color with the right capitalization. That is the best iced coffee I have ever had. Okay, now let's run this, and we are going to be, when we run it, we are going to be denied. And this, if I'm making this mistake deliberately, because when it happens to you, it is so hard to figure it out. It says it's kind of a cryptic message. It tells me that in line 17, so I know that it's in line 17, it says can't parse center sequence item with index 0 has wrong type. The only thing that is really a clue that is going on there is wrong type of variable. What it wants is it wants integers. And if I take 640 divided by 2 is 320, but for some strange reason, Python makes 320 a floating point number, not an integer. Now, if it was 641 divided by 2, you would clearly see that that is a floating point number. But the problem is it even makes 640 divided by 2. It makes that a floating point number as well. And so what we need to do is we need to come in and we need to take the int, make an integer out of width divided by 2. And we need to make an integer out of height divided by 2. And then you're forcing the first number to be an integer. You're forcing the second number to be an integer, and you won't get that error. And I think we might have talked about this in earlier lessons, but man, this has caused me such headache and such misery. So I deliberately make that mistake for you. So when you make it on your own independently, you'll recognize it. So let's see what happens now. And we have Boom, look at that. We have that circle and we have it done with parameters. And so that is really cool. Okay, moving right along, the other thing that we might want to do is we might want to CV2 and we might want to what? We might want to put text. Notice the T is uppercase there. The text T is uppercase. And now where do we want to put our text? We want to put it on our frame. And now we got to tell it a few things. We've got to tell it what is the text that we want to put on there. Well, I'm going to say my text because I'm going to be good and use parameters, and I can come up here and say my text is equal to Paul is boss. No, Paul is boss. Okay, I like it when my programs call me boss. Okay, so there I have my text that is going to go in. Now what I need to do is I need to give it the position, okay? And it's the position of kind of like the lower left corner of the text. And so I don't want it, and this again, this is going to be X comma Y. And so I'm going to want it to kind of go over about 100, and I'm going to want it to go down 90. So I'm going to say go over 100 in X and then go about 90 down. Okay, let me make it bigger. Let me make it 120 and 60 just to make sure that I've got my X's and Y's in the right order and that I am not misleading you. Okay, now I've got to give it a font. And you have, to get to the font, you say CV2, okay, dot. And then you've got to say font, F-O-N-T. And then you can see pop up here all your different fonts. Font Hershey Plain, font Hershey Simplex. You got all these different ones. So let's just go font Hershey Complex. This always makes me want a chocolate bar when I do this. I don't know if this is the same Hershey that makes chocolate or not. Okay, now what we're going to do is font size, and I'm going to make the font size, let's say 2. And then the next thing is going to be the color. I'm going to put comma to be good. The next thing it wants is the color. Again, color is at a tuple. Let's make the color blue. Okay, so I'm going to put 255, 0, should be blue. And now how heavy do you want the font? The 2 is how tall it is, and now how heavy. Well, let's make it a 2. Okay, and I kind of gave up on being good using parameters. You can go up there and make these parameters if you want. Okay, so let's come in and let's run this thing, and we are string object is not callable. What is that nonsense? I didn't put a comma. Hope you guys saw that. Boom. Okay, so now let's try it again. Who's your Huckleberry? I'm your Huckleberry. Look at that. Paul is boss. Now let's see if it went the right way. Yeah, you see it's just 60 down. It's not very far down, and it's over 120. So it is over 120 and it's down 60. And so that kind of makes sense. Although I would really rather have that red. I think such a dramatic statement like that should be red. And remember, it is blue, green, red. So we'll come over here and put 255 here. And maybe it's a little bit big. And so let's make the font thinner. I'll leave it the same size, but make it thinner. The weight is going to be 1. So you can see this will be a big font with a really fine line. Okay, big font with a really fine line. Okay, I'm going to make this smaller as well. I think they kind of scale, like a 1 goes with a 1 and a 2 goes with a 2 a little bit better. Okay, Paul is boss. That is pretty good there. That is not bad at all. And so I can quit out of that. Okay, guys, look at that. What have we figured out how to do? We figured out how to manipulate the frame with an array command and directly manipulate those pixels if we want to change their color and create a shape. You can imagine going through and creating a line by doing things, by doing different things. We can use our friendly cv2.rectangle call in order to call the rectangle function that will put a friendly little rectangle up there. We can use the circle call to put a circle, and we can use a put text call to put a text. Also, I will say that it's probably a lot easier if you come up here and you say my font is equal to CV2 dot let's do font Hershey duplex like that. And then down here, you can just come in and it makes it a lot cleaner code if you say my font like that. And then we could say font height and font thickness. So now we got to go up and say font height. Font height is equal to 2, and then font thickness is equal to 2, and then let's see if that will run. Okay, that looks good. And what I like about it, well, that's kind of a little bit nicer font too. It's a little bit simpler and easier to read. But do you see, if I give a command like this, okay, let's look at my circle command versus my rectangle command. Now you just took this lesson. And the CV2.rectangle command, you've already forgotten what all these numbers mean, right? You've already forgotten what all these numbers mean. Okay, so but look here. Oh, I see in the circle command, I see exactly what I was doing. But you see, you would be a lot better off to come up here and say, like, what did I say? It was upper left is equal to, and then it's the upper left, and then it is the lower right is equal to. And so I have the upper left is going to be equal to this. So I'll Control C and Control V, and then the lower right is going to be this. And now if I come in and I say this is upper left, and then I come in and say this is lower right, and it doesn't like that. Lowercase l, lower right. Right. Now when you look at this line of code, it makes a lot more sense. And then this I'm going to give as my line width. And then up here I can say line width is equal to 4. Okay, because man, these OpenCV calls for these things like this can get really confusing, and you can learn it today and you can completely forget it tomorrow. But when you write your code like this, it's going to make it a whole lot easier. Let's see if it actually runs. Okay, look at that. It actually ran. And so that looks pretty good. And now when you look at that rectangle command, what's he doing? Oh, that must be the upper left point. That must be the lower right point. And then, of course, it'd be even better if I called that color, my color. Okay, and line width. And that way your code becomes a lot more readable. And a lot of times you can just pop open one of your old OpenCV programs and you can kind of remind yourself how you do these things. It's very hard to just have at the top of your head every single one of these OpenCV functions. All right. Guys, I do need to give you a homework, okay? What your homework is, you see this while loop? You grab a frame, you show a frame. You grab a frame, you do some manipulation, you show a frame. You grab a frame, you do some manipulation, and you show a frame. Now, as we move on, the manipulation that we're doing between grabbing a frame and showing a frame is going to get more and more and more complicated. And it's going to get complicated to the point that it might start bogging your computer down, especially if you're working on like an old laptop or something like that. It's going to start slowing it down and your computer is going to be having trouble keeping up processing all of those frames. And so what we need to do is we need to keep track of our frame rate, our frames per second. Now, what your assignment is to calculate in this loop, to calculate your frames per second. Okay, you're going to calculate your frames per second. And then you're going to display your frames per second in a little box in the upper left. of your image. So here's your image, and in the upper left, you're going to say something like 23 FPS for frames per second. And then if we put a bunch of stuff in there to slow it down, then you'll start seeing that frames per second slowing down. And then if you get down, like if you're writing a program and you get down to like 3 or 4 frames per second, then it really starts getting jerky. But what we want to be able to do is calculate the frames per second and then display the frames per second. Now, how do you think about this? Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a hint. When you go through this this while loop one time, you process how many frames? You process 1 frame. So the question is, how many times per second can you go through this while loop? That is your frames per second. Now you got to think about it a little bit. Okay, you got to think about it. Maybe do a little bit of math. Don't just jump in and start coding. Maybe do a little bit of math before you try to do that. So that's your homework, and I will give the homework solution in kind of like the AI for Everyone Lesson 8 homework edition. Okay, and that'll be coming out in the next couple of days, but really try to do it on your own. Really try to do this on your own, okay? Because you learn to code by struggling with something and struggling with it. If you just come in and watch me do it, it's going to look easy and you're going to think you understand it when in fact you don't. Okay, so we like to give homework. We also like to give a secret word every time. And man, I'll tell you, can you tell how excited I am about that coffee? Look at that crema just sticking to the side of this. This is just, you know, there's no sugar in it, but it's almost sweet and it's very full bodied and it's almost like an undertone of chocolate. This, my friend, is the best. This is the best coffee that I've ever had. And this is the bag of 60 pounds of coffee beans that I got. I guess they used a sugar bag to sell me my coffee in, but it was just a little farmer who had grown this and dried it. And then this is a picture of the unroasted beans themselves. And then what I did is I went and I took these, I roast about 1.5 cups of beans at a time. I took these beans and I went out and I roasted them in my Deluxo coffee roaster. I actually have a little room just dedicated to roasting my coffees. And I got that roasted up most deliciously, brought it in, ground it, and then made my coffee and then sat down to make this video for you. So the secret word for today is Mount Elgon coffee roaster. Okay, I am the Mount Elgon coffee roaster. All right. Guys, I hope you are having as much fun taking these lessons as I am making them. What I would appreciate is if you guys would give me a thumbs up. Also, make sure you leave a comment down below. Leave a comment of what the secret word is today. Also, let me know whether you were able to do the homework or not. If you were able to do the homework, leave a comment down below. I am legend. If you were unable to do the homework, you can leave the comment. I folded up like a cheap Walmart lawn chair. It's actually okay to fold up like a lawn chair. It's better to try and fail and understand that you don't understand it and then watch me and then see, now I really understand it. I understand why I was thinking about it wrong. I understand the right way to think about it. So it's okay. But be honest, did you fold up like a cheap lawn chair or are you legend? And then Mount Elgon coffee roaster will be your secret word for a day, for the day. And then I'll see you in a couple of days with the solutions to this. I will run out now and start working on the solution. Might actually go out and roast myself a little more coffee. This is Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.